Only you can.
Hey folks, welcome to another Storytime with Max. It's been a while since I did one of these, but the time has come. This evening I'm going to read The Becoming Silverhands, Part 5, and The Tale of Nuana, Part 5, and I'm going to give you a quick refresher since it's been a while since I read Part 4. But what just happened is Nuada, having come out of the depths, found out that he was away for 100 years. He heard a lot of stories about himself and Bress. Has heard that Bress is still the supposed king of the Tuatha-Dé-Danann, and raised an army in order to take back the city of Tir na Nog. And he laid siege to it. And finally, in the course of the siege, the Hamadryad healer, whose name we still do not know, the Hamadryad healer emerged and was captured, and then told Nuada that he and his army were under a powerful illusion. And it was a very painful thing to go through, but once it was dispelled, Nuada could see that his arm was not gold, but a spider's arm. And his sword was not obsidian, but this disgusting collection of bone shards. So he's clearly been deceived and by the creature called the Merchant. Hey, Lotoween. Watching this live. Let's see. So yes, he had the illusion dispelled, and now sees the truth. And indeed, as he goes to the city with the remainder of his army that has not yet deserted him once the illusion was dissipated, now sees that Tir na Nog is not well protected with its glorious walls and gates, but is in fact in ruins. Just to make sure, can you hear me okay? Didn't refresh when I switched back, and now I've missed half the recap. Oh no. Alright. I'm gonna write refresh. In case there are other people out there watching the chat but not seeing the stream. Alright. So, yes. With the illusion gone, Nuada sees that the city he has been besieging is in ruins. And he just entered it. So, The Becoming Silverhands Part 5, The Tale of Nuda, Part 5. The city was empty, devoid of life. Not even vermin crawled through the streets or ruined houses. The vaunted watchtowers stood silent and empty, as their watchers had abandoned them. Once, that had been a crime punishable by death or exile in the harsh code of the Tuatha That seemed so ludicrous now. A few corpses lay here and there in the streets, stripped of valuables. Nuada felt his blood boiling. The hot, itchy feeling descended upon him once more. His arm twitched to punish someone for this horror and humiliation. He knew now that it was the influence of his spider's arm and the strange bone sword he'd carried for far too long, amplifying his anger and feeding on his desire to wreak terrible vengeance upon Bress. The strange thoughts in his head, the uncontrollable impulses that ran through his body like a cold fire, they bubbled up from something dark within. He had become a corrupted being. As he neared the city's main square, he saw warning signs and graffiti dotting the walls of the collapsing buildings. There were obscene references to himself, Bress, and Baelor. By the edge of the central square, charred corpses littered the street. Judging by the dust and scattered armor and weapons, the bodies had lain undisturbed for a long time, as if nothing dared to touch them. As Nuada approached, keeping to the edge of the dusty street, he choked down disgust. There was something wrong with the bodies. They were too short, burned and covered in ash. He was almost ankle-deep in the gray stuff. Short and oddly flat on one side. Finally, he understood. They had all been cut neatly in half. They must also have been torched. There was a dry, smoky miasma that hung in the air, the ash disturbed by his tread. Nuada turned a corner and came to a halt. Blocking the entrance to the main square was a barricade. Someone had erected it out of whatever was at hand, including the charred half-bodies of Tuatha soldiers. Looming over the city square, he recognized a familiar silhouette in the sunny distance, the statue of Baelor. Somehow it had grown in size over the years, rising taller than any of the surrounding buildings. The smooth gray statue's one eye was firmly shut. Though gigantic and deformed, the statue called Baelor was incredibly lifelike. It looked like a creature covered in stone armor, waiting for something. Nuada thought better of approaching the thing, and stood at the barricade of corpses for several minutes, watching dust and ash blow in the wind. He heard a step behind him. "I thought I'd find you here," said the Hamadryad. She had retrieved her sword, and it hung at her hip, while her tail tapped the scabbard. "You know, Nuada, among honest souls, rarely are a person's deeds as good or as bad as they believe." "That is small comfort," said Nuada, never taking his eyes from the barricade. "These soldiers trusted me and my decisions." "Your arrogance cost your people much," she said, "though it is not too late for us to rise from the rubble once again." "I don't know if I can bring vengeance on our enemies. I am too easily deceived by myself." The healer stepped closer. "You think about yourself too often. Instead of swearing revenge, decide how best to serve our people. Don't drown in self-pity now, as you have been drowning in hatred for so long. The world is under siege, and those that are strong enough must help. Or the Tuahadedanan shall perish. Nuada glanced at her, then back at the piles of the dead. Can you tell me why these bodies are so strangely scarred? You see before you the handiwork of the one-eyed horror that is Balor. When your people first learned of the treachery of Bress, they took up arms and stormed his tower, not expecting what lay within. As they neared the statue, its eye opened, and a black light emerged. This beam of light sliced through all who ventured into the square, cutting them neatly in two, like a butcher slicing a slab of meat. As their bodies fell to the ground, they caught fire and burned. The healer was matter of fact, watching his face. Nuada shuddered. How is such a thing possible? Our mages can summon powerful spells, but this is beyond the greatest of them. Magic has advanced much in your absence. Even so, our scholars could not come up with an explanation for such power. Over the next few years, many different assaults were launched against Balor, but none succeeded. Balor feasted on our deaths and grew to incredible size. Not much was gained, but she paused, weighing her words carefully. What is it? Nuada asked, urgently. The healer sighed in resignation. I did notice something. If Balor is approached by a single warrior, his eye will open, but no beam will emerge. He will let us walk right up to him? Nuada was puzzled. As long as a being poses no threat to him, Balor simply watches. Perhaps he studies us as we study him. Have any tried to talk to the statue? Yes, but he doesn't react in any way. He simply watches and sucks life from the earth. People withered and died. Those were very dark days. But when we realized that Bress was only helping Balor to feed, the few survivors fled the city. I had just discovered that his life-sucking tendrils had been retracted when your sentries captured me. She smiled. This I must see for myself, said Nuada, with a little bit of the old bravado, or is it bravado, returning to his voice. Perhaps that would be best. Be forewarned, however, any threat will awaken him. I understand. Nuada stripped off his armor and daggers, placing the obsidian sword on top of the pile. He let go with hesitation. Releasing the sword was becoming ever more difficult as it fought to regain its hold on him. Stripped of his weapons, the former king of the Tuahadedanan felt naked as he climbed over the barricade of corpses and slowly made his way to the thing called Balor. As if Nuada had crossed an invisible line into the square, glowing energy began to flow toward the mighty stone edifice. Nuada could feel motion all around him, as if he were being sucked in by a whirlpool. Nuada continued to walk across the flagstones as Balor began to stir. Slowly, inexorably, the eye opened and shifted its focus to Nuada. For a brief moment, Nuada's right arm tingled and itched. Feeling tiny, he stood before the statue and met its gaze with his own. Reaching out with all his senses, he tried to read Balor's aura, but came up empty and confused. "Speak to me," he whispered, repeating it in every language he knew, many of them forgotten by the world. However, there was no response but the occasional blink of that inscrutable eye. Despair rose within him. This was pointless. All of his struggles in the depths, gathering an army, pushing himself ever onward. And what had he accomplished? Dead companions. Dead Tuahadidanen. Dead dreams. Nuada made a fist with his left hand. The eye widened in anticipation. Watching it, Nuada thought he saw a hint of amusement there, a slight smirk at the corners of the statue's twisted lips. He looked back at the barricade. Desperately, the Hamadryad was waving her tail and shaking her head. Her whisper carried across the square. "No, this is the coward's way out." Her last word echoed around the empty square as Nuada looked back up at Baelor's face and opened his fingers one by one. The swift relief of death would be too easy. It would be no more than deserting his people again, forever. In a low voice, knowing it did not care and would not answer, Nuada spoke to the statue's toes. "No matter the price, I will pay the butcher's bill to restore my people." Then he turned and walked away. Baelor's eye watched him climb back over the barricade and disappear, lingering a moment before closing. "I see you have returned intact," said the Hamadryad, a small smile curving her lips. "Yes, but I almost didn't." "I know. Your thoughts were as evident to me as the evil in Baelor's eye." Nuada raised an eyebrow. "How do you know my thoughts so well?" The Hamadryad laughed. "Being a healer requires a talent for reading symptoms. It is not just magic, as some believe. Have you decided on your path?" "Yes. I know what I must do," said Nuada. "And what is that?" "I must rid myself of this accursed arm, sword, and other tainted treasures from the depths. Then I must confront and defeat Bress to regain the 4 mighty treasures of our people," said Nuada, as confidently as if he were listing a number of household errands. "Is that all?" laughed the Hamadryad. "It is for now," Nuada declared. "Excellent. I can find those who can help you. Gather the remains of your army and wait for my return." The healer fixed him with an icy glare. "You will have to be patient." Nuada grimaced as he strapped his armor back on and reluctantly picked up the evil sword. "I will do as you ask." As the Hamadryad walked off through the ruined city, Nuada realized that he had never bothered to ask her name. That is a really good place to stop for the evening. Yeah, we'll stop there. Just because it's such a good place to stop. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Next week I will stream myself reading the rest of the story. Part 5 of the story, that is. Part 5 is a good long chunk, so we'll have plenty to go through. Join us tomorrow. Let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We're going to have some sort of art stream in the afternoon tomorrow. Here, I'll make the schedule appear. Unless I misspell schedule. That looks right. There we go. Yes. It's going to be either environment art with Dion or Tyler. Or Tyler will do weapon LODs. So, some kind of art stream, I think, actually was the most correct. With either Dion or Tyler. Those are all cool things, though, so tune in for that. And that evening, I will follow that up. Excuse me, with Gauntlet of Death. And one lucky victim. So, nothing else? Asks Lanoween. Are you, what are you referring to? Streams? Yes, Gauntlet of Death tomorrow, same time as I started today's stream. We'll be doing map 10, which is extra special. Alright, well, once again, thank you very much for listening, and I will see you later. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, and bye-bye. See you later.